Well, crypto's been under the gun since early November, and now some are saying we could see one of those Bitcoin retracements, like those historic ones with the big prior drawdowns, which would mean a whole lot more pain. Now, keep this in mind. Drawdowns from peaks of 2011, 2013, and 2017 were 80% or more. So is this a pivotal moment? I think maybe we've got to make a stand here. I want to bring in the Investing Diva CEO, Kiana Danial. And Kiana, Bitcoin this week, it held nicely at 33,000. I'm looking at the chart. I think 30,000 has got to hold, just purely technical. So how would this time be different, again, than 2017, 13, and 11? Do you think there's enough institutional buying, or something has changed that we don't need to go down 70 or 80%?
So very good to see you, Charles. And I think Bitcoin has historically just repeated the same pattern, or a similar, or somewhat resembling pattern over and over again. I don't think anything is different than before. I think Bitcoin's market price and volatility has been purely psychological, and when it drops, we will panic sell. And of course, there's a trigger behind it at the beginning, a whale dumping, or some institutions and some of the headlines that have been coming out, and people start selling, and therefore the Bitcoin prices start dropping to the psychological levels that we're watching right now, $30,000, as you mentioned. It is a very, very strong sort of psychological level. I don't think it has quite bottomed out yet. I think we still have room for further drops before it goes back up. But again, long term, my long-term view for Bitcoin, because of supply and demand, has always been bullish if you look at the big picture.
I want to talk to you about the democratization of crypto. There's a report out that says 94% of buyers are 18 to 40 years old, and yet word from Professor Scott Galloway says that 95% of Bitcoin is owned by just 2% of accounts. So does this sort of take away from the narrative that this is a way to escape, for younger folks to escape the grip of the establishment?
So here's the problem with this kind of reports, is that it's not taking into consideration that Bitcoin addresses are not the same, are not typically just one account. Like sometimes this like a big exchange that has like millions and millions of users has the same address. So this analysis that, only 2% of Bitcoin holders, like 95% of Bitcoin is held by 2%. This is misleading. It is not the truth. And the fact is that the reason why I personally invest in Bitcoin is specifically because I want to have my freedom as an individual. As you know, I was born and raised in Iran to a Jewish family. Before the revolution happened in Iran, my dad was very successful, was very rich. But what happened after the government was completely blown out, they went and seized all of her bank accounts, his assets that were basically regulated by the government that my dad used to trust. And if at the time something like Bitcoin existed, and my dad had some exposure to that Bitcoin, once the government went down, he would not have gone back down to rock bottom. So the reason why I diversify my account with Bitcoin is precisely because of that, because as an individual who lives in the land of the free, I want to have that freedom. You
know, it's interesting. Maybe that's why China is so afraid of it, and Russia and those kind of countries. By the way, speaking of governments, I've just read where the White House wants crypto to make rules about crypto as a matter of national security. So this government also seems to be very intimidated and trying any kind of way they can to stop this from becoming a big thing.
It kind of looks like it, and I hate to put it as like a Democrat-Republican thing, because I don't think it should be, but you can see that this is something that, yes, they cannot manipulate. This is not like the Federal Reserve that they can just go and print more money out of thin air and kind of have control over the market. This is something that is peer-to-peer, and that is international, that I can send money to the places that they may not want me to internationally. So then again, I mean, I'm going to have you to read between the lines, but I don't think this is something like an attack from China that we have to be worried about. This is something that is an individual choice, and I think that you need to have that freedom to choose.
Absolutely. It's been too long, Kiana. Great seeing you, and fantastic stuff. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.